Hello and welcome back to my channel. Oh, my monitor is acting up now all of a sudden. Okay. Anyway, welcome back. Today, we're going to be making some Bratz clothing. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I just never I kind of put it off because I had to make patterns and everything. Speaking of which, I will leave them in the description. Like, I'll scan them and try and put them in links to them in the description. So yeah, and I'm also gonna do this in kind of order from like the easiest to the most difficult, and I'll be leaving timestamps in the description as well, if there's like just one or two things that you want to learn how to do or know how to make. But yeah, in terms of supplies, you're gonna want obviously your patterns. I already have them all cut out and everything. I have that cut out. You're also going to want some thread, obviously, and a couple other different things, and just basic sewing materials. You could totally do this by hand. I am doing it by machine though. Okay, well, fuck you, monitor. I guess she didn't want to work with us today anymore. But I'm going to do it by machine. I would also recommend you use a model. Today I'm using Shredded Yasmin. She is beautiful and she's gorgeous. I have her in this outfit, but we will be stripping her of that later. I'm not going to take her clothes off right now because I don't want to get demonetized. And, well, not that I am monetized, but like I don't want to get this video taken down. So, just because there's a naked doll in it. So I'm going to zoom you in and we're going to get sewing on the little top first. Alright, so we're going to be starting with the top. If you're looking for it on the thing, it is labeled as the Bratz Tube top. I don't know if you can read that. It's labeled as the Bratz Tube top. I can't get it to focus, but it's on there. It's fairly easy to find. It's on the standard clothing set that I have on there in the description. Now there's really two ways to make this. You can either just cut out one. I accidentally cut out two, but the first way is to literally just hem it like that and go all the way around and then proceed from there. However, since I made two, I'm going to put the two good sides together. I'm going to go ahead and just sew along the edge of this, leaving this end open. Okay, real quickly before I start sewing, one thing that I learned when it came to doll's clothing when sewing it, since it's such a tiny piece of fabric, one of the best things to do when you're starting is actually just to hand crank it in the beginning, because if you go straight in with the pedal, it'll sometimes eat the fabric. So, and then I'm going to back stitch it. So you want to hand crank it at first and then continue from there. I have it all stitched around the edge, leaving this one open. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off these little extra bits. And then just so it lays a little bit better when we turn it inside out, I'm going to go around the edge and make little snips like that, just every like half centimeter or so. I also forgot to mention, when you do that, only do it on the curved edge. You don't really need to do it on this bit here where it's straight. It's just so it lays flatter. Yeah, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn this inside out. Sometimes it's helpful to use like a pencil or something to kind of help guide the fabric through, especially if you're like me and you have fucking fat fingers. I mean, we're also working with something tiny, so I mean, there's that. You just want to carefully push the fabric through, so I'll be right back. After I get it inside out, I'm going to go ahead and fold this side in and stitch it. Now that I have that secured down, I'm actually going to continue and go around the rest of the perimeter, so you can see it's kind of like poofy. If I go around this edge with a stitch. It'll just kind of help flatten it out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So if you didn't do 2 layers like I did, where you didn't, you know, if you just hemmed it with 1 layer of fabric, this is pretty much where you'd continue on with the process. I do think, now that I've actually done it like this, I think it does turn out a little bit better hemmed, because as you can see, like, this side is nowhere near even with this side, but whatever, I don't care too much. I mean, it'll be fine, it'll work. But I'm gonna go ahead and now just add Velcro to this side and to this side. Well, onto this side and then the back of this side. I'll show you what I mean once I get the pieces cut out. So I have my Velcro cut, and I'm gonna put this first one on this side. I'm just gonna secure it down. So I just went around it all the way around the perimeter of that square or rectangle, and then I'm gonna do the other one on the other side. Just obviously on the opposite side of the fabric. In other words, this is where your hem would be if you were to hem it. Okay, so I forgot to mark it, but I'm gonna go ahead and add straps to mine. If you don't want to, you could totally skip this step, but on the pattern there's these 2 little lines at the top, and I'm just gonna transfer that onto this as best as I can. And those are for where the straps are gonna go. I'm going to use this blue ribbon, just because I don't have any brown ribbon that matches this, but I feel like blue would be fine because we're also going to be working with a lot of purple, so. And I'd suggest cutting more than you think you need. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and line it up on that line on the fabric, and I'm just going to sew it on. And obviously you're going to want to sew this on the inside, not the outside of the fabric. So again, this is like the inside of the top. This is where your hem would be. Kind of wish I didn't do it this way. I wish I hemmed it like normal, just so it'd be easier for you guys to understand, but yeah. Once you have them sewn on, there's a couple things you could do. You could either leave them long and then kind of just tie it behind their neck, like a halter top type situation, like that. Or you can do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put it on the doll real quick, on my model, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I have it on her, and I'm just going to turn her around. I put it on her inside out just so we can mark it. I'm going to turn her head around. Kind of see where the things hit, and I'm actually going to cut them a little bit below where I want them. And you can also mark on the shirt where they're gonna hit, but for me, I typically just make sure that they hit around the middle of where this would be, or in the middle of the Velcro. Now sewing this can be a little tricky because you do have to kind of make sure it's kind of twisted in a way, so that way when it's closed it lays flat on the doll. Here's the top finished. If you want, sometimes if you're doing 1 layer, it could be a little baggy here, and you could add like a little stitch there to kind of fit it a little bit better, and I'll show you an example of that real quick. So here I have this top that is the same pattern that I made for Chloe the other day, and it doesn't have straps or anything, but I did put like a little stitch secure here just to make it a little bit more fitted around the waist, and I think it's super cute. Alrighty, so now we're going to go ahead and make the sweater. On the pattern it is labeled as the Bratz Top Basic if you're looking for it. Really the only reason it's a sweater is because I'm using this felt, but you can make a t-shirt out of this as well, or a tank top, or a long sleeve t-shirt, or a short sleeve t-shirt. It's literally just a basic top pattern. The sleeves are also on there as well, so yeah. So since we have our pattern, I'm going to go ahead and hem the neckline here, and then I'm also going to go ahead and, yeah, I'm just going to start with the neckline actually. That's where we're going to start. Okay, so now that I have the neckline hemmed, I'm going to go ahead and put right sides together and sew these little side seams on each side. Now that I have those side seams sewn, I'm going to go ahead and hem the bottom of this. You could have done this before the side seams, but I like to do it afterward just to make sure that it's going to be completely even on the bottom. Because sometimes it can, if they're uneven hems, then it might not be quite right at the bottom. It'll be like wonky. So now that I have that all hemmed, I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and I'm going to start on the sleeves, which is fairly simple to do. So to start, you're going to take one and open it up, and you're going to hem the sleeve. This is where the armhole is, basically. Okay, so I have them both hemmed. I'm just going to go ahead and, again, fold it in so that both of the good sides are facing each other. I'm going to sew along this line here. So now that I have that hemmed, what I would implore you to do is to grab your doll and make sure that their hand fits. I already know mine are fine. It's actually going to be quite roomy, but just to make sure that their arm fits in the sleeve, because it would suck to make them and then have it not quite fit. Also, if you're looking for a tighter fit sleeve, you could totally just take it in and just slowly take it in as you keep trying it on the doll. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take these and turn them right side out. So now you're going to take your sleeve and you're going to take your top, your sweater, top, shirt, whatever, and you're going to take them and you're going to put this on this side and line up the two hems or seams, and you're gonna sew along the inner edge around here and sew this bit to this bit, but you want to make sure that the good sides are facing each other, otherwise it can be tricky. I do this part by hand, so I'm going to do it off camera actually. I'll show you like a couple stitches on camera, but I like to do this by hand because I've never had the best luck doing it on the machine. I've tried like so many times and it's always turned out really weird and just never turned out right, so I've always had the best luck just doing it by hand. Like I said, I'm just going to line up the two seams, and I'm just going to start sewing them together. And the key is really just to make really small stitches. Ooh, looped around the sleeve. But yeah, you just want to make really tiny small stitches and just take your time. Because the tinier stitches are, the better it's going to look and the more durable it'll be. So I'm going to go to this off camera, I'll be right back. Alright, so I went around it once and stitched it. I'm going to go around it again just to fill in these little gaps and just make a solid line. That way it looks good from the outside. Because if you just leave it like this, it'll kind of like, you could kind of see like where your stitches are on the inside. So it'll kind of just secure it a little bit more. Once I get it all the way around a second time, that's it. I went ahead and tied it off, and you can flip it right side out. And it's not perfect, but it's better than it had I done it by machine, honestly. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the other sleeve, and I'll be right back. Now that I have the sleeves and everything attached, I'm going to go ahead and take my Velcro, and I'm going to sew one on the outside and one on the inside just so it closes properly. And with that, your sweater is all done. And here it is on Yasmin. Sorry for the camera quality, you guys, changing. I had to switch my phone, my camera died. But with this pattern, we have one piece that is the skirt, and then we should have 4 of these little triangle pieces. So what I'm going to do first, before we get into that though, is I'm going to go ahead and hem this top bit here. So now that I have that hemmed on the top, I'm going to go ahead and start sewing in my little triangle pieces. I'm going to put it right sides together, and this can be kind of tricky. And I'm going to sew along that edge first. And then once I get that sewn, I'm gonna flip it and I'll come back to you then. Okay, so now that I have that sewn on, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it like that and sew it onto the other side so that it's stitched like that. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that at this juncture for this part of the skirt, it is really important that you're starting and ending your stitches with a back stitch if you're doing this on a sewing machine. If not, just make sure your thread is, if you're doing it by hand, then just, if so long as you have that knot and you're tying it off, you should be fine. I'll show you how to, I'll show you this sewn, and then I'm going to do the rest off camera just because I don't want to run out of storage on my phone. Okay, so I have that stitched on. Here's what it looks like from the front. Cute. Now I'm just going to do that with the rest of them, and I'll be right back when I'm done with that. What it looks like with all the pieces inside of it, I'm going to go ahead and hem the bottom edge as well as these two sides now. Alright, so I actually decided against hemming this edge just because I kind of like the distressed look. I think it's kind of cute, so I'm going to actually leave it. But of course you can go ahead and, sorry, I gotta snip this little thread here. Okay, but you can of course go ahead and hem yours if you feel like it. I'm just gonna go ahead and add on Velcro to each side, and I'm only gonna go probably to like where the tip of this little point is for the length of the Velcro. Once I get those sewn on, I'm gonna fold it in on itself so that we have the inside of the skirt showing, and I'm just going to sew along this edge here, joining the two sides together. I am going to leave a little bit of a gap between my thread and the Velcro just because I find that it's helpful. And with that, your skirt is done. The skirt, I think, came out really cute. So now we're going to move on to this jacket. I would suggest if you're a beginner, we don't start out with this because this one is a little complicated. It's maybe even a little complicated for me, but I'm gonna work through it. So I'm gonna start with the lining. I'm gonna open this up real quick. I'll be right back. Here we have the lining. I'm gonna take one of the collar pieces and flip it so that the short side is facing the collar of the lining, and you're gonna center it, and we're gonna sew this on to the collar of the lining. With it sewn on, you're gonna flip it up, and it should look something like that. And now I'm gonna set that aside, and we're going to grab this piece, and we're essentially going to be doing the same exact thing. Again, we're taking that back collar piece, lining it up with the center back, and sewing it on. Now that we have that sewn on, I'm gonna go ahead and take our lining piece, and we're gonna put the two pieces with both good sides facing each other, and we're gonna line them up the best I can. I'm having a hard time here, and you're just gonna sew along the edges of it. I'd suggest pinning it. So I'll pin it and show you what that looks like. Alright, so this is what it looks like all pinned. You're only going to be sewing along the center front on each side, and then along the collar neckline piece. So I went ahead and I sewed around the edges. You may notice I did change the collar. I felt like it needed to be bigger because the other one was just not sitting right on the jacket. You don't have to worry about that. The pattern that I gave you guys is this color, so you should be fine there. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sides of each layer, and I'm gonna sew down their individual side seams so that they're still separate, but they'll be sewn together, if that makes sense. Okay, so real quickly, the side seams for this, we're obviously gonna sew from the sleeve hole up here, right here, all the way down to the bottom of this. Once I get those sewn, I'm going to go into where the waist is right here, and I'm just going to make a little snip on each side, just because I find it helps it sit a little bit better. And then we're going to flip this right side out. Now, just like I did with the top, I'm going to go ahead and stitch along this edge just to make it lay a little bit flatter so it's not so poofy. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and hem along this edge, the bottom edge, and then this edge. Just like we did for the sweater, for the sleeves, I'm going to take one of the sleeves, open it up, and hem this bottom edge. Now that we have it hemmed, we're going to fold it over and stitch along that edge. And take the time to make sure that these fit. Also, take the time if you want to make adjustments, like making it slimmer or whatever, go ahead and do that now. I get the sleeve turned right side out, I'm going to line it up with the sleeve hole and sew it on by hand. I just like doing it by hand. If you want a little bit more detail as to how I do this, you can go back to the jacket and how I did it on there, because I showed you guys how I do it. Alright, now that I have the sleeves on, I'm going to go ahead and add on the Velcro. I'm going to add one here and then a couple down here, but I'm not going to do a whole strip because it would make it too stiff. So yeah. After that, I'm going to go ahead and sew these down and add in little embellishments like buttons up here and stuff, and I'll show you her in the showcase at the end. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'm actually gonna go ahead and get out of drag now. As you can see, there's a dramatic shift in lighting. I've been filming this since 10 o'clock. It is currently 3:30 p.m. and I've been filming since 10 this morning. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Comment below if you want to, so long as they're nice comments. And yeah, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.